Today on Homeworthy, we're heading to upstate New York to visit the 1960s A-frame cabin of publicist Caroline McKay. Looking for an escape from the city, she purchased this cozy and quaint move-in ready home that features minimalistic and serene decor, expansive wooded grounds, and her favorite, a barrel sauna. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. To shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy episodes, be sure to check out the product links below for amazing furniture, accessories, and more.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Caroline McKay. Welcome to my home in Livingston Manor. Come on in. So this is kind of the main living space of the house. So just to give a little bit of background on it, so I previously worked at Soho House and kind of took a lot of inspiration from like how they design a lot of their spaces. They use a lot of texture, but I'm a bit more like a little bit more muted tones, but I really like kind of the way like different textures work together and can look good together while also feeling cohesive. So that's kind of how I thought about this space. Also, this is an original 60s A-frame, so it's a little unique in that the structure of the walls is like very much a triangle from, ceiling to floor. So also having to work in that and realizing that you have to kind of be unique with where you can be placing art. You'll probably notice this like very small piece of art in the corner here. And so kind of was really intentional about that, but also I needed to find a sofa or a sectional that was like extremely low to the ground because there's only about like 30 inches there. So it was really hard to try to figure out like what would work well in this space while also kind of maximizing the space that I have. Because if I went with something higher, it would jut out very far. And so I ended up finding this sofa, which I really loved. I forget the exact brand or where I found it, but I loved that it was kind of this like white blue boucle color. And it just like felt like it fit really well with the space and also made it really natural. And also, this is my dog, Ollie, who will be very involved. So kind of thought about that. And then I really like kind of more like 60s mod shapes, things like that. So that's where kind of the like bubble lighting you'll see on, this side here. And then also like a smaller moment over here. And I thought it was a nice way to like light the space. And because of the high ceilings, there's also, it's difficult to have like overhead lighting. So I wanted to make sure that there was a lot of lighting, within the space. So also just trying to create like separate moments too. So like this here, just kind of making a little space where you can sit down, read a book, kind of put your feet up, relax, and like also kind of, it just feels like a very relaxing part of the space, which I really love. And I'm trying to think if there was anything. I did get some, like this table here, I found vintage. The magazine rack over there I did as well. And then these coffee tables actually I found, I think on CB2, and I just loved them so much. It was like one of the pieces I waited the longest for. And so I think that's big for me too. Like I really like a mix of vintage and also like kind of bringing in some newer pieces too, to make it feel like, just like speak to the house a little bit more and like what, how like you want to live in a space. I'll show you in the back bedroom. So I have a TV that's like on this cool easel thing that I put it in the back bedroom because it's really difficult to like plan for a television in this space. But it's nice because since it's on an easel, you can just bring it out of the back bedroom and plug it in. Like I did that last night, watched a movie out here. So it really makes this space really cozy. I've also thought about a projector, but I just wasn't sure if people would be kind of craning their necks a little with the walls like this, but always willing to try. I also think for me, like personally, I don't watch a ton of TV, but I do like it to relax every once in a while. But this place feels like a very like calm, serene, very much an escape from kind of the city and what's like going on in the world. And so for me, I felt like I didn't need to put a TV in every room or have it like too plugged in. Obviously there's Wi-Fi, things like practical, but I did feel like one that could be kind of moved around would be the best. I live in Soho in Manhattan, so obviously kind of the center of the city, which is really amazing and I love it there, but I do find that like I don't sleep as well in the city. I find that I like kind of need a place to escape to. And especially I think pre-COVID, it's like, you know, I was fully living in the city. My parents, you know, live outside the city. So when I was at their house, it was always very nice to be like kind of in nature and a little bit removed. I think I realized during COVID just like how important it was for me to have like some sort of access to nature. So that's what really drove me to kind of start looking up here and yeah, just kind of think about like really what makes an escape for people. And like, I think when you're in a place where like nature is so abundant and so beautiful, it's like, when you wake up here, you're hearing birds, like you're kind of waking up naturally with the natural light. You know, it feels like a very different way of living, whereas the city is so amazing, but very buzzy. So that's kind of like why I was really thinking of getting a spot up here. And also I think post-COVID, I think everyone was like a little nervous, like not having, you know, wanting to have a place to escape to just in case. So I try to get up here probably like once every 2 months. I wish I came up more, to be honest, but sometimes I just get stuck in the city or stuck with other travels. But I feel pretty lucky. This is like a place where like friends can stay. I also rent the house. So it's kind of like a good mix of me being able to use it, but also like sharing it with people around me, which is great. Now let's see the dining area. I think when I thought about this space, like I talked about it with a few different people and a lot of people were like, you know, you probably want something like small, something round, like a bistro table. But for me, like hosting is really big. And I also wanted to be able to have friends up there, have people feel comfortable. Also, if it's like bringing my team up here, wanting to do some work up here, like I wanted a place where people could feel very like centralized. And I also think there's like a nice idea of like working with the space and kind of like something like longer felt more interesting to me than round in this particular space. So it's cool because like I said, like my big thing is kind of combining furniture that's being produced now with vintage. And so this table was from Article. I found it and it was just like the perfect size. So I got that. But then these chairs I found at a vintage store in Westport, Connecticut. And I think I got, which is insane, I think I got the whole set for like $200, which was insane. And I mean, they're beautiful. They were in very good shape and they're kind of cool because if you look at each of them, for example, like the wicker on this one is like a little bit of a darker wood, whereas like the one next to it's a little bit lighter. But I actually kind of, that's I think what makes spaces so unique is that this like lack of perfection. And so that part of it was really interesting to me too. And then when I worked at Soho House, we were launching a platform called Soho Home that was like their furniture line. And we had done a project with these three, I think they were friends or brothers who started this lighting company called Tala. And I just thought like they were the coolest fixtures that were basically these kind of like large bulbs, but like really reinvented to make them like a standout. And they have like table side things. So I always looked at this one. I always thought it was so unique and cool. And for this space in particular, like I was mentioning, like there's no wiring up here and it would be really difficult to do. So being able to kind of hang something like this felt that it would make this space even cozier. I can turn it on if you guys kind of want to see how it lights up, but it's pretty interesting. Just the way it almost looks like an Edison bulb, but just way more, has like an artistic part to it. And then this is something people always ask about. And this was like with the original house. And so it's a pellet stove and probably was honestly the original kind of like major source of heating in the house, but it's, as you can see, it's huge. But it's really cool. It is usable and also just kind of really fun to have on in the winter if you want to make the space a little bit cozier and you don't want to like, utilize the electric heating as much. And I also think if you're like having a dinner and have a nice fire, just again, like making a space feel really like homey and cozy, I think is always just huge. So I think a big thing for me is, yeah, creating a space that's really inviting for people. I think, you know, I always feel like I'm very interested about like the concept of home and like what that means to people. And I think for me, it's always meant a space where I like can truly feel like I get to unplug, that I feel like very comfortable in, but also that it's not too overwhelming, too like much going on, where it's almost like you can make a space your own in some sense. So that was really huge for me. I think I love the idea of people feeling like they want to like cozy up and like be with friends and cook, or like, you know, just like spend time in a space. I think that's also why I have like so many blankets all over the place. I always want people to feel like they can just like wrap in a blanket or like take a great nap or like kind of sit down with a book. And I think, like I said, just like being able to unwind, like coming out from the city. I mean, we're only 2 hours from the city, which is so nice. So it's really easy for people to get up here. And I think when they do, they like feel like they're so much further from New York, which is awesome. This rug was Soho Home, and I think it felt interesting to me because it's basically like, to me, like a very differently designed jute rug. It's almost like pieced together. And I thought, again, like it uses this like lighter color palette while also, you know, feeling very like interesting in design and a lot of texture to it. So it's like that, like contrasting with the blue boucle and then like kind of the green and the marble, I think just like kind of comes together in a really cool way. Also for practical reasons, you know, jute, it's really easy to care for. You know, you don't have to worry about people if they trek in mud, or like they have, you know, I have a dog obviously who's central to the shot. But, you know, I think it's pretty easy to care for as well. So it's like kind of this mix of like style and design while also like thinking about functionality. And then the one under the dining table, I think I was just also wanting to really like section spaces out because it's such an open floor plan, and, you know, making people kind of know like what area they're in or like what it's almost intended to be for. So for this one, I just wanted to go with something that was kind of like fit the table perfectly, that wasn't too far out from the table. Also just, again, for practicality reasons, because, you know, if people are eating, things like that, like if it's further out, it's like the chance of spillage is a lot higher. But then also just going with something very like muted tone, just to make the space feel warm again, but also like pulled together. It's really cool. The table is kind of a mix. Like when I come up here and I'm doing work, it's my favorite thing to like sit at the head of the table and kind of look out at, you know, nature. And it can be a very like alone, great time for me. But I love to kind of host people, and I love to host dinner parties. And so it's kind of that dual thing where it kind of functions as both for me personally. So I think with hosting for me, it's all about kind of like ease and also being able to like have a good amount of counter space. And I, you know, had mentioned this maybe a little earlier, but there's like a very big sink here, which I think is really great because up here you're buying a lot of like, you're going to a lot of, you know, farms, you're buying a lot of produce, or like I'm always like getting flowers and putting flowers in the house in the summer. So it's nice to have like also so much space in the sink to really kind of like, you know, fill it up and be kind of washing everything. And then one cool thing that I like love about this kitchen is actually that these cabinets are original to the house, and that they were just kind of redone for, you know, when it was fixed up. So they were just repainted, and they even used kind of these like original hardware, which is really unique. And they feel like very farmhousey. I'm also like, as you could tell from my wardrobe, I love stripes generally, and although this is not like a typical like stripe, I just love kind of these like vertical lines. I think they make the space really unique, especially contrasting with like kind of these where it's more like horizontal tiling. And then all the appliances, they're kind of cool because they're Bertazzoni, and so all Italian appliances. and they are made for smaller spaces. So, but it's funny because even though they are like smaller than kind of like the average appliances, it doesn't feel that way to me. It feels very like you can, you know, very much be cooking like full meals. The fridge feels very spacious. And so I do feel like there's like a good amount of like room in here to really like cook or kind of honestly like use it as kind of a central space, or, you know, making coffee and tea in the morning. Also, the window here overlooks into the yard. So it's just like a nice space to like stand sometimes, very like, I don't know, very kind of like a movie moment, like looking out at the beautiful yard. So I actually didn't touch this kitchen much when I moved into the house. A lot of kind of what a lot of people would consider more like major renovations to the house were already done, since it had been like flipped before I got it, which was actually ideal for me, because also like the kitchen was a big selling point for me when I came and saw the house. I just loved how they had done it. It was very much my style. And yeah, so there wasn't much really to be done for it, but I think that also speaks to a little bit like a lot of people have asked me like, oh, why'd you buy a house that was already flipped? Like, I feel like you have, you know, an opinion on a lot of design elements. And I felt like this house was, even though it had been newly renovated, it was very much a blank canvas. But also what a lot of people don't account for is, you know, there's a lot of building going on upstate, which is great, but there's like kind of limited amount of people that are able to really work on select projects. And so friends who have gone with more of a fixer-upper or are trying to flip themselves have kind of trouble getting, you know, the work done in an effective timeline. So for me, I'm one person, I own my own business. I have a lot going on. And so I feel like I wanted a space where I could kind of like come in, do some like, do all the interiors, do some minor work to it, and really make it my own without having to go through the stress of like very major renovations, especially being 2 hours from the city. Because even when something minor comes up here, you know, you have to kind of race up here. You have to find the right people to help you with it. So for me, it felt like that was at this point in my life, in the future, I'd love to do like a very major renovation, but not right now. So I'm going to take you guys into one of my favorite places in the house. Also the one with the best views. These are kind of funny, have a little bit of a story to them, but they're pine cones from Sequoia National Forest out in near San Francisco. And my aunt had them, and I always loved them. And my parents had used them historically as decorations in our house growing up, especially in like the fall months. So I thought that they were just like a fun addition to the house to make it feel like cabiny. So as you can kind of see, this lofted area has the best view in the house. As I mentioned, this was an original 60s A-frame, but the person who flipped the house put in the triangle window and the big window here, which I think really probably changed the entire house, and really just gives you this like true window to nature. It's a little harder to see in the summer because obviously there's so much greenery, but when the fall is here and the colors, it is magical. You feel like you're in like a snow globe. And same when it snows, it's just like the coolest views. And so I just love being up here. I will say, if you're not like a morning person, the light comes in pretty early, like 5:30 a.m. So just bring a sleeping mask. And then this fixture is really interesting, really cool, kind of more like farmhouse vibes, I would say. This came with the house. They had installed this prior to me moving in. Also, thank goodness, because I think these ceilings are over like 30 something feet. But one thing, you know, is that if you have to change the bulbs, it's a little challenging. And I recently had a tree fall in the house, like, you know, the power surged and it knocked out all the bulbs up there. And so had to get some guys in with some very tall ladders to fix that one. But I do think it's such a great fixture, and it just, when it's lit up at night, you can kind of see it from the road. Like, it kind of lights up the whole A-frame inside and just kind of really gives off a really beautiful light. So I really love it. And then this is kind of a little just reading nook, which I love. Just a nice place to sit when you're, so like I said, wanting to relax, look out into nature, just a kind of another one of those like seated moments where you very like, again, to unwind, unplug, similar to what I mentioned in the living room. And then this is always the bedroom I stay in when I'm here. I think it's just like, I love the space. I think, again, like just like the views, waking up, like the sounds, like feeling as like you're in nature. These two lamps on the side of the bed are one of my favorite vintage purchases ever. Red marble is very difficult to find, especially when it comes to lamps. And I just feel like this red marble in particular, it's like so veiny and interesting. Like it's like pinkish red. And so those are what basically designed this entire room. So I based the rest of the design off these two lamps, which is so funny because they're so small. But you know, after seeing them and picking them up, I was like, these are perfect. And so, as I said, big fan of stripes. So hence the bedding. And this is actually like one of my favorite clients I've worked with for years. It's called Pom Pom at Home. They make beautiful stuff. And kind of paired it with these really fun side tables that kind of are like checker mark design. And then again, like I mentioned it earlier, but art is really hard to hang in here. So, and these walls in particular are like very slim. So kind of having like a mirror up here that also reflected the rest of the space felt important, but also having something that was like very simple and again, just relaxing to view and watch. So that's how I kind of thought of it. And then I did put this like small bench here at the end of the bed just to like have a space where you could kind of like either like perch a little bit or like, you know, put a dress or like, you know, fold some clothes on. I don't have a ton of storage up here because I wanted to leave the space so open. So not that this is that much storage space, but I did think it was nice to have a little something that, yeah, you could like put some things on. These side tables also, they kind of snap right out and you can store stuff in there as well. So it's kind of like a unique little space for storage, which is kind of fun. And then yeah, with the best view in the house. I'm gonna take you guys back downstairs to see the other bedroom in the house. So this is the second bedroom, very much just like a traditional room and more traditional like square bedroom space, but a few different things that I love in this room. This triangle dresser, I lived in London as a child and this was a gift from my mom to my dad and they had it in their house in Connecticut for many years. And when I brought the A-frame, they were like, you need to find a way to put this in there. It's an actual A-frame, you know, so, and it's fun because it has like all different size drawers. So you can kind of put like littler things at the top and then like use the rest as like actual storage, which is pretty cool. So I just love that like element. And actually a lot of people comment on it as like one of the cooler things in the house. But it's definitely like a more traditional in terms of like the color, and so like making it work with this space. And then I also love the rug in here, this kind of like checker mark rug. This is a Nordic Knots rug. I always like love their stuff, but this one I felt very unique to me. And again, like I like contrasting patterns a little bit, so it felt very fun to have in here. And then yeah, the bedding, I'm big, as you can see, I love like stacking pillows. I like using like different colors and really like making up a bed. And then I know I mentioned it a little earlier, but this is the room that has the TV. And it's really nice because it's on kind of this easel and can kind of like, you can move it any which way you'd like. And then you, like I said, you can like move it throughout the house. So a really easy way if you like want to have a TV in a space, but you don't want it to be like the dominant feature. And again, like very few places in my home that I can actually hang a TV. So for me, this felt like the best option. You can either stay back here or move to the living room, move upstairs, kind of wherever people want it, which is really nice. And then this mirror here that just kind of reflects back. And just, I always think mirrors just open up a space, make it feel bigger, make it feel, you know, reflecting on like the rest of the space. You can kind of see it from different angles, which was pretty cool. And then this room I think is a great room if you're more of the type of person that wants to like sleep in. I put curtains in here and just, you know, make it feel a little bit more like private. But this also has like so much greenery surrounding it, and the forest is back here behind the house. So this room also just feels very like cozy, especially in the winter. So in the winter months, I'll come down here sometimes. The one thing that's really cool about this house is like the sun hits it at all different times of day. So as you probably saw in the living room and upstairs, like morning light is, golden. But in the afternoon, the back of the house gets all this beautiful light. So this room gets completely lit up. The bathroom back here gets that, and so does the kitchen area, which is really special. And so I think it's just cool to kind of watch how the different rooms like almost change with this natural light. So yeah, definitely something that's like very interesting. And as I've mentioned, there's so many windows in here that I think that's also a really cool aspect of it too. Also, one other little thing to mention. So I have this kind of like interest in putting art in like different kind of spaces that people don't really expect it. And I think one that people always mention is I have this piece of art that kind of fits perfectly in this hallway and is like on the floor here almost, which people are always interested in because it kind of draws their eye to, because it's this like very like girly pink moment, which I love. But also, is like right below this window and really fits like perfectly into the space. So something I always like to mention, just because it's almost like a little secret touch that I feel like people recognize, but they don't like fully see until you mention it. Well, I'd love to show you guys the front of the house because I think that's one of the coolest aspects. And one thing people always mention to me too, and you'll notice when we go outside, is the whole house on the outside is all black and pretty much everything inside is all white. So it's a really kind of cool contrast just to see like the difference. People always say like the outside of the house kind of looks like a witch's hat. So you'll see it. Come on, little dude. So this is the outside of the house. Honestly, like one of my favorite parts of the house as well. I just really, like I said, I really like kind of the contrast between the outside and the inside. And it's just, as you might be able to tell, there's kind of this like large porch area. So this is also a great place to come if in the summer I love to like host on this table or work outside here. I have a fire pit and all the firewood here, and it just feels like a very relaxing place. You can also, I also like will pull out a yoga mat and do yoga out here. So it's definitely like it's one of the like best views of all the overall kind of lawn and everything too. So you can kind of see the saunas over there, and then I have another fire pit down there. Yeah, so you just feel like, again, you're kind of like 360 surrounded by nature, which feels very nice. And there's an amazing natural wine store in town. And I think my favorite thing is lighting a fire up here, making some pizza or something, and then having a glass or two of wine. So I'm actually really excited. Yesterday was my birthday, so I'm having a bit of a birthday weekend camp out up here. So I have like 40 friends coming in from the city, which is kind of crazy, and doing like a bunch of outside games and like gonna have the campfires going, the sauna going, sprinkler too, but just really like, I don't know, it's really nice to be able to share this with friends because Livingston Manor is such an amazing town and such a fun place, and then also being able to like bring friends up from outside the city and kind of have them experience what I experience out here is very cool. And I even bought like one of the uni pizza ovens so we could like make our own pizzas outside, and I think it's gonna be a really fun weekend. Also, the weather is actually so perfect. I think one thing is, the house upstate, you don't really need AC, and I think some people kind of get worried about that sometimes, but you just open the windows. At night, it goes down to like 60 degrees. You have like a beautiful breeze. It's just so nice up here. I think that one of the things that actually really drew me to the house was just how big this patio space was, because as you probably can tell, I love my house, but it's pretty small. It's very cozy, but like having this just almost is like an extension of the footprint of the house, which feels so nice. And also it being able to, like I said, put a fire pit up here, utilize the yard space, really like kind of can be used for so many different things. And also like you could move the chairs up here from the lawn. Like you can really kind of make it how you want in terms of like a cozy space, and you're we're up on like kind of a mountain top here, and you're like even elevated further on this porch. So it also does feel like you're very combined with nature, which is really nice, and kind of like in the trees tops, which I love about it. Something that I am really drawn to with homes in a nature setting is just having a lot of natural light and a lot of windows, just also because I feel like that is what makes you feel like a part of the surrounding nature and just like makes it more interesting to me. And so as you can see from the outside of the house, not only do the two windows that I was describing that are here but then, you know, these bottom floor windows plus the front door has a massive full length window. So it's like when you're looking inside or outside, you just really have this like amazing view either way, whether you're seeing the inside of the house or you're seeing the nature from when you're sitting inside. So I think that's like such a cool like architectural feature to the house, and something that really like drew me to it, to be honest, because that's, you know, I think in New York City, for example, like you don't necessarily want to be surrounded by windows because then everyone can kind of see into your place, versus in a nature space when you're kind of surrounded by trees, there's kind of this like freeing aspect to it. I love it. And I think there's just like being able to also like look at the little elements when you're looking in the house from the outside is really cool too. I do also love this doormat. It says peace and quiet. And again, I think that's like what I've talked about like most of this home tour, but just making a place to unwind, and that being like the first message that you kind of subtly see when you enter, I think is pretty cool. Okay, I want to show you guys the yard. There's kind of one thing that I like think about just like being upstate. As I mentioned, I like really wanted a place where people could, myself included, unwind and relax. So part of that, obviously, like having a fire outside at night. I feel like I always did that growing up with my dad as a kid, and I just think it's such a relaxing way to like end the day. And even if the weather's like, it's kind of an all year round thing, even in the middle of winter, you can have like a great fire going and feel like totally warm. And so I put in this, you know, kind of like very sectioned off like fire pit area. So when I got the house, I bought it in winter, so there was snow on the ground. When the grass grew in, what you're seeing here was like buried with like mud and grass, and like no one even knew it was here essentially. And then I had some landscaping work done just to like clean it up, and they're like, hey, so we actually discovered this like fire pit area. And it was kind of this amazing thing because it was clearly like a part of the original house that had just been like covered for years. So it was like kind of unveiling. It felt pretty cool and interesting. And so I got these like great chairs. I forget the material, but they withstand, I can keep them out all year round. And I also love the look of them. They kind of remind me of the ones from Design Within Reach, but they're like, that wasn't in the budget for me, so went with these, but they're fantastic and I think they look really great. And then I have a bigger fire pit here, and then like a smaller solo stove on the porch. Back to kind of the unwinding aspect of the house, I think one thing that I personally love is like, I love saunas. I think they're really good for you. I also feel like you're not getting to see this, but in the early mornings here, there's like a mist because we're on a mountain that kind of like, when you look out, it's almost like, I don't know, it's pretty magical. And I always envisioned, I was like, I think the best thing would be to, that time of morning, like go into a sauna. And so, yeah, I had this barrel sauna built, which has been amazing. And I think it's, first of all, I just like, love the color. I love like the contrast with the house. It feels like very like natural. It fits like right into this like perfect start of the kind of forest behind my house. And also all these ferns grow here on the sides of it. So felt like such a great place to put it. And so kind of cleared some of the ferns and really just like tucked it in the start of the forest. And yeah, it's a red cedar sauna. Really beautiful even from the inside. It fits, I think it fits, there are 4 or 6 people. I think it's 4. But yeah, you can even like smell the cedar, and even if it like rains a little and it just like that really great kind of smell comes out of there. And I just, yeah, a perfect place to like, I don't know, I think when you come upstate sometimes it's like you don't want to have to leave the property for everything, but if people are coming from New York City, it's kind of hard for them to like get all the groceries and stuff like from the onset. But like just having a nice like space where you on the property, you don't have to leave, where you can just like very much unwind and kind of then go have a, you know, tea or coffee in the morning, I think is a really nice aspect to it. So I also like love the look of it. I was like not sure like which one to get, but this one worked out great. So it is electric, but then there's like sauna rocks that you put in, and then you can like put the water on the sauna rocks and kind of make it the steam as well. But yeah, there's nothing, I'm a big runner, and there's like nothing better than going on a long run and then coming back and like doing a sauna before showering. It's kind of like the best morning routine ever. So yeah, it's a very, very exciting like amenity. But actually from the architectural standpoint of the house, I could show you like one more thing that I think is kind of cool. So I mentioned earlier when we were on maybe it was inside, but I mentioned that like the house kind of looks like a witch's hat, which you probably didn't get from seeing that. But if you come up here, it's more of the back of the house that looks like that. And there's this like kind of little clearing here. But if you look at the house from this angle, you'll see what I mean. Isn't that cool? And it just, yeah, it looks like, I don't know, Halloween back here. But then again, like seeing all the greenery around it, it's just so cool. And also like seeing the yard from this angle and like the sauna and everything, you feel calm. I don't know, I just feel like because that's obviously like the only parts of the house that are square, kind of like you can really see it. And it's kind of fun just to see how far it goes back. I did mention earlier that I have thought about just like the concept of like what makes a house a home and like what that is for me and what that is for other people. And I think the biggest thing is it feeling like inviting a space where you can like really be yourself and kind of leave your own like footprint in. And for me, that was what I really focused on when kind of making this space, just a place that felt like very cozy, very comfortable, a place, like I said, that you can host. Because I think the biggest thing comes down to like in life and in houses, it's the people that are there and the people and like kind of the memories you make in a space. It's not the actual physical structure, no matter how cool it can be. And I think that's the biggest thing, like making a place where people feel like they can feel comfortable, make those like great memories and like really like be. So I think that's for me what makes a house a home.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.